Ex-wife who cheated and abandoned our family years ago shows up at my door with another man's kid, wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. I'm 38, male, and a single dad to two amazing kids. My life hasn't been easy, but it's been honest. I've worked hard to build a stable home for my children after my ex-wife walked out on us 5 years ago. She cheated, left us in the lurch, and vanished without a trace, only to resurface recently with another man's child, spewing a sob story that she thought would win her sympathy. Instead, it earned her the most humiliating defeat of her life. To back up a bit, my ex-wife, who I'll call X, and I were married for 7 years before everything imploded. When we met, she was vibrant, full of charm, and seemed like the perfect partner. But over time, cracks began to show. She always wanted more attention, more money, more excitement. Our marriage became a one-sided effort, with me working extra hours to support the family while she spent recklessly and complained about how boring her life had become. The breaking point came when I discovered she'd been cheating with someone from her gym. She didn't deny it when I confronted her. Instead, she blamed me. "You don't make me feel alive anymore," she said, as if that justified her betrayal. I filed for divorce the next day. She didn't fight it, signing the papers with an air of indifference before walking out the door. She left behind not only me, but our 2 kids, then aged 7 and 4, saying she wasn't cut out for motherhood. For years, she was nothing more than a ghost in our lives. No calls, no visits, no child support payments. My kids stopped asking about her after a while, and I did everything I could to fill the void she left behind. Life was hard, but we found our rhythm. The kids flourished, and I focused on being the best parent I could be. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. It was a typical Saturday morning. Pancakes on the stove, kids arguing over the TV remote, when there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I opened it cautiously. And there she was. X standing on my porch with a nervous smile and a child in tow, a boy who looked about 3 years old. "Hi," she said, her voice overly cheerful. "It's been a while." I stood there, stunned. It took me a moment to find my voice. "What are you doing here?" Her smile faltered. "I wanted to see you. To talk. Can we come in?" I glanced at the boy, who clung to her leg. He wasn't mine, of that I was certain. "No, we're fine right here." "What do you want?" She sighed dramatically, as if I were the unreasonable one. "Look, I know I've made mistakes, but I want to make things right. I've been thinking a lot about the past, and I realize now that I belong with my family. Her family. As if she hadn't abandoned us without a second thought. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, crossing my arms. "You don't get to walk back into our lives just because you feel like it. And who's the kid?" Her expression turned defensive. "This is Jay, my son. His dad isn't in the picture anymore, and I thought, maybe we could all be a family again." I stared at her, incredulous. "You thought what? That you could show up out of the blue with another man's kid, and I'd just welcome you back? Are you delusional?" X's face hardened at my response. "I'm trying to do the right thing here," she said, her voice laced with entitlement. "I made mistakes, but I've changed. Don't you think the kids deserve to have their mother back?" I scoffed. "You mean the kids you abandoned? The ones you haven't bothered to call, visit, or support for 5 years? Those kids?" Her mouth tightened, but she pushed on. "I was in a bad place. I didn't know how to handle everything, and I thought they'd be better off without me. But I'm here now, and I want to fix things." I could feel my blood boiling. "You want to fix things? That's rich. Let me guess. You want to move in, play house, and pretend none of this ever happened." She hesitated, and that was all the confirmation I needed. "You've got some nerve," I said, shaking my head. "You didn't just walk out on me. You walked out on your kids. You don't get to waltz back into their lives like nothing happened." "They're my kids too," she shot back. "I have a right to see them. And they have a right to stability," I countered. "Which you've proven you can't provide." The boy, Jay, tugged on her sleeve, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. X bent down to shush him, then turned back to me with a pleading look. "Can't we at least talk this through?" she asked. "For the kids' sake?" I could see what she was trying to do. Paint me as the unreasonable one, the obstacle standing between her and her redemption. But I wasn't falling for it. I had spent years cleaning up the mess she left behind, and I wasn't about to let her undo all that hard work with empty promises. Still, I knew this wasn't just about me. My kids deserved to know the truth, and they deserved a say in what happened next. So, I told her to wait while I called them downstairs. My son and daughter, now 12 and 9, came into the living room, confused by the sudden summons. When they saw X, their expressions shifted, first to shock, then to something colder. My son, ever the protector, immediately stepped closer to me. "What is she doing here?" he asked, his voice sharp. "She wants to talk to you," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "She says she wants to be part of your lives again." X crouched down, trying to meet their eyes. "Hi, sweethearts. I've missed you both so much." My daughter clung to my side, refusing to speak. My son, however, didn't hold back. "You missed us?" he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Funny, you didn't seem to miss us when you left. Or when you never came back." X flinched but tried to recover. "I made a mistake. I know that now. I want to make it up to you." My son crossed his arms. "You can't just show up and pretend to care. We're fine without you." I couldn't have said it better myself. X's face twisted as she realized her charm wasn't working. She straightened, glaring at me as if I were the one at fault. "This is your doing," she snapped. "You've poisoned them against me." I laughed bitterly. "You're giving me too much credit. You did that all on your own. They remember who stayed and who walked away." She clenched her fists, trying to regain control of the situation. "I'm their mother. I have rights." "Rights?" I shot back. "You haven't paid a cent of child support. You haven't called, written, or so much as sent a birthday card in 5 years. Any rights you had, you forfeited the day you walked out." Her entitlement was staggering. "I left because you made me feel like a failure," she spat. "You expected me to handle everything while you were off working all the time. I couldn't take it anymore." I stared at her, incredulous. "You're blaming me for leaving your kids? For cheating? That's rich, even for you." Before she could respond, my son stepped forward, his voice trembling with anger. "You're not my mom," he said, his words cutting through the tension like a knife. "You don't get to call yourself that. You left us, and we don't need you." My daughter nodded silently, tears in her eyes. X looked like she'd been slapped, but instead of backing down, she turned to her last desperate tactic. "If you won't let me see them, I'll take you to court," she said, her voice shaking. "You think you can just keep them from me? I'll fight for custody." I couldn't help but laugh. "Custody? You've got to be kidding. You don't have a job, you've got another man's kid to take care of, and you haven't been involved in their lives for years. No judge in their right mind would give you custody." Her jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought she might actually lash out. But then her expression shifted, her eyes narrowing as if she'd just come up with a new plan. "We'll see about that," she said, grabbing the boy's hand. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." Over the next week, I braced myself for the legal threats to start rolling in. Sure enough, I received a letter from her attorney, a demand for visitation rights, along with vague threats of a custody battle. It was laughable, but I wasn't about to take any chances. I immediately contacted my own lawyer, who assured me we had nothing to worry about. "We'll file a counter-motion," she said. Her abandonment and lack of financial support are major strikes against her. Plus, the kids are old enough to have their voices heard in court. This won't go far. Still, the audacity of it all fueled my determination to put an end to her games once and for all. I started gathering evidence. Copies of our divorce agreement, records of her missed child support payments, and even old messages where she admitted she wasn't cut out for motherhood. My lawyer and I built an airtight case, ready for whatever she tried to throw at us. When the court date finally arrived, X showed up looking smug, as if she truly believed she could win. She had a new lawyer by her side, someone clearly hired on a shoestring budget. Meanwhile, I had a mountain of evidence and a lawyer who knew exactly how to dismantle her claims. As the hearing began, her lawyer tried to paint her as a reformed mother who deserved a second chance. He emphasized her willingness to reconnect and claimed she had been unfairly alienated from the kids. It was all nonsense, but I let him talk, waiting for my turn. When my lawyer presented our case, it was like watching a house of cards collapse. She laid out every missed payment, every year of absence, and every attempt X had made to shirk her responsibilities. The judge's expression grew sterner with each piece of evidence. Then came the best part, my kids' testimony. The judge allowed them to speak privately, and they didn't hold back. My son, especially, made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with X. Their words carried weight, and I could see X's confidence crumble as the judge listened intently. By the end of the hearing, the judge's decision was swift and decisive. He denied X's request for visitation, citing her years of abandonment and lack of involvement. Not only that, but he also ordered her to pay back child support, every missed payment from the past 5 years. The amount was substantial, and her face went pale as the total was read out loud. As a mother, you had an obligation to your children, the judge said sternly. You cannot simply return and expect to pick up where you left off. Your actions have consequences, and this court will not reward neglect. X tried to protest, claiming she didn't have the means to pay, but the judge wasn't having it. He gave her a strict payment plan and warned her that failure to comply would result in further legal action. She looked utterly defeated as we left the courtroom. That wasn't the end of her humiliation, though. Word spread quickly among family and mutual acquaintances about what had happened. Her attempts to paint herself as the victim fell flat when people heard the full story. Even those who had initially been sympathetic to her started distancing themselves. She'd burned every bridge she had left. Meanwhile, my kids and I returned to our normal lives, free from the shadow of her manipulation. They were relieved to know they wouldn't have to deal with her anymore, and I made sure to remind them every day that they were loved and supported. A few weeks later, I got one final message from X, a desperate plea to forgive and forget, accompanied by a half-hearted apology. She claimed she wanted to make amends and begged me to reconsider letting her see the kids. I didn't bother responding. Actions have consequences, and she was finally learning that lesson the hard way. Looking back, this entire ordeal reminded me of why I fought so hard to protect my family in the first place. My kids are my world, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe from people who don't have their best interests at heart, even if that person is their own mother. If you've ever dealt with someone entitled, manipulative, or just plain delusional, I hope this story gives you some satisfaction. And if you like this tale of karmic justice, don't forget to hit subscribe. Stick around. I've got plenty more stories about life, family, and the chaos that comes with it.